Maybe you can go ahead and check for me, our facilitator, just confirm to me how the polls are like. I don't know if you heard me. Okay. So as we wait for our facilitator to just share with us on Bida, I don't know if you can check for me before we move on. Okay, so as we wait for Bida to go ahead and share with us the poll results, many of you probably have already attended an interview. Some of you might not have already attended an interview, and that's okay. So when we're here, basically, we're going to break down what I call, or what actually is considered like the 5 P's of interview preparation, just like the beginning of each letter. So we're starting with, I'll mention them and then we'll go ahead and just break down each one of them all through the session. So the first P of interview preparation is just like the name, preparation. You want to prepare yourself for an interview. An interview is a conversation where you're going to tell an employer, or you're going to convince an employer or demonstrate skills to an employer or a panel that you are the most qualified candidate for the role that they're looking to fill, for the vacancy that they have in the organization. So that's one, preparation, to make sure that you show up prepared and everyone honors preparation. The second thing is practice. So most of the time you will prepare everything that will go a bit later, talk about preparation, but even in your preparation, you might miss out on the aspect of punctuality. Sorry, you might miss out on the aspect of you've never practiced it. Maybe it's your first time, or maybe in your life you can count you've only been to 2 or 3 interviews. So you get nervous, you get scared, and things like that. So there's also the aspect of practice that is really important, to make sure that when you go there, your confidence is not something that someone can doubt. They can just tell you're presenting your most authentic self. And again, you have to understand with interviews, when you're going there, this is someone that you will most likely work with for a long time if all goes well. So they're also trying to see, are you someone that I want to come to work and call a colleague? Are you someone that I want to sit next to? Are you someone that I want to go to that department to ask for something? They're checking those things in the interview. So the practice is also important. We also have the punctuality. So when you talk about punctuality, just like it's very respectful to show up for a meeting on time, this goes a long way, because if you are supposed to come to an interview, let's say the interview has been scheduled at 10, and then you show up at around 12, 11, 10:30, even 10:05 or 10:15, and you did not say this to anyone, you can imagine the picture that you're painting. So that's why we talk about punctuality as being among the 5 P's of interview preparation. The fourth P that we have is presentation. So you know that human beings are visual creatures, meaning we receive you or we perceive you as you have presented yourself. So if you come to my interview untucked t-shirt, maybe you're not clean, you're just not presentable, you're not appealing, you don't look professional, you didn't put any effort to show that you're here for whatever purpose we have called you, which is obviously the interview. You can imagine, I'll think of it as this is probably also how you will treat your work. Yeah. You will treat your work in the very same way. You won't care. I won't even think that you're relaxed. I'll just think that you don't care. And we need people who care at work. And then lastly, we have the P of performance. So, how are you going to perform in this interview? What are some of the aspects that you should consider in terms of performance when you talk about body language, when you talk about how you're answering questions, when you talk about how you're demonstrating your own experience, and so on and so forth? So, these are the 5 P's of interview preparation. We have preparation itself, practice, punctuality, presentation, and performance. So out of them, all of them are very important. There's not a single one that is not as important as the other. They're all as important. So let's look at preparation, for example. So when you talk about preparation, which is the first P of interview preparation, we're looking at the research that you're going to do. So let's just talk about some of the groundwork that you should have done. So for the company, the firm, or the organization that you are applying for, that you're interviewing for, or that you've been called for an interview, you want to go on any website, you want to go on any search engine, whether it is Google, whether it is Mozilla, whether it is Edge, whatever search engine that you're comfortable with, you want to go ahead and check the company's website. Most companies have a digital presence, so go ahead and check their website. You'll find a lot of information on what the firm has been doing, what they're dealing with, what the organization is doing, what they're dealing with, the milestones, even some of the things that you might be working on in terms of the projects. You might even find it there. So it's a good place for you to go and just come and understand better. You can even go to their social media pages if they have any. Check what has been going on in the past year, in the past month, in the past quarter. What are some of their highlights? What are some of the things that they really celebrate? How do they celebrate employees? How do they celebrate the wins or the milestones of the projects? And so on and so forth. So the first thing that the basic you want to go is to just search that company, make sure you get the right website and go through it. Use your 20 to 30 minutes to really skim through the website, any publications they have, and read whatever you feel would be relevant to the role that you're applying for. It will go a long way. The second thing is job specification. So, as much as possible, try to familiarize yourself with the job role that you're looking for. For example, if whatever you are trying to you're applying for, if that job role or that job specification is not on the farm, it's very hard for you to understand what your role is going to be. But if you go there and you see the job description, in case they have not pulled it down, you're able to remind yourself what exactly are the duties, the responsibilities, the tasks that you're expected to do. And you're also able to match it against what you know yourself to be capable of. So, for example, if they say you're going to be recruiting, you're going to be interviewing candidates, you're going to be in quantity surveying, you're the one who's going to be drawing the bills of quantities. If they say you're the one who's going to drop the designs as an architect, if they say you're the one who's going to do the bookkeeping as an accountant, if they say that you're the one who's going to be
Excuse
serving
me,
people.
Paula.
Yes?
Looks like your slides are not moving. I'm not sure you're moving through the slides, but they are not moving. So usually the best way is this, for
Uh-huh.
this app, you share your entire screen, and then you put it in a slideshow.
Oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
problem.
yeah. Yes, like this, and then and then put it in a slideshow. Perfect. Yes, now we're good. And then yes, good. Thank you.
Okay. So have we talked about the 5 Ps? Where did I lose you guys?
Exactly where we were.
Okay, so we are preparation.
Yes, we were at preparation.
Perfect. So, just as I had started, I thank you for that, Bida. I really appreciate it. So, for the preparation, we're looking at you going on the search engine, Google, Mozilla, Microsoft Edge, Bingo, anywhere that you can go and search. Use the search engine to check the company website, check what they're doing. That's the first stop that you're going to do. Use your time, take your time to just look at their values, their mission, what they've done, the structure, the company size, their reach globally and also locally, and just really understand it. The other thing is a job specification. So with a job specification, you want to look at the task responsibilities and the duties that is listed then there, or the role that you're going to play for the particular thing that you're applying for. And use this to compare against, are you really the best person or the best fit to do this? And if you are, you're able to cite some examples as you're going through this, that I have done this before, I've been exposed to this before, and have some examples in your head as you're going about it. The other thing is your interviewers. So you might find you're in a position where you can be able to check who your interviewers are. So this could be on LinkedIn, this could be also that the company site is just showing this is our leadership, this is our team, and you've been told, for example, if you're applying in the Department of Construction, maybe under the QSing. So the QSs are going to be the head of QS, for example, or the lead QS, or if you're in architecture, the head of architecture, or you'll be told who's going to be in that interview panel. So this will be really important that for you to just also familiarize yourself that this is the person I'm going to meet. These are the people who are going to be there. The other thing is going to be the format. So many interviews that you want to familiarize yourself. Earlier on when we started, we talked about the different interviews that are there. So you might find that the format before you even start, let's say a technical interview, there's a psychometric test. A psychometric test basically tests your IQ or EQ or a combination of the two. And then after that, they test your technical proficiency. Then after that, they can go ahead and ask you to maybe make a video recording of yourself. It really depends on the organization, the role that they're hiring for, the agency, and a lot of factors that they consider. So as a recruiter, when you're obviously looking at all of these things, we want someone who has already set time aside to do these things. And obviously the effort is going to be rewarded for the one who puts in the most effort, for the one who has a competitive edge and understands what is required. So the format. So what are the different components that you need to consider if it's a format? If you realize they'll tell you we're going to do a particular exercise for 15 minutes that will test ABCD, go online and search sample test, do them, get your score. When you're comfortable, then you can go and click start the test. So don't wait until you're there and you're thinking, oh, I've never seen this question. Oh, I didn't know, I've never interacted with this since high school. That is okay. We're here for you to know that these aspects are very much there. The more you're going on in, the more you're going on in the world, the more you're going on in your career journey. The other thing is your CV. So your CV does matter as much as maybe you had applied before, or maybe the interview that you're being called, they were just saying,
Ah,
sorry? Okay. So if you had earlier, maybe the interview looked a bit informal where they asked a call out for applicants, just share your email, your name, and your number. And then later you're being asked, please share your CV. That is not weird at all. You need to make sure that your CV describes your experience level. If you have done something that is going to impact the way you will perform in this job, that should be in your CV. Whether it is a leadership position, volunteering position, any project that adds to your portfolio, you need to add it. So that is your CV. You can also go and check how the modern CV looks like, the components of adding in your CV, check how to edit your CV, or hire someone to do your CV for you. But you need to have a CV, a curriculum vitae that stands out. Why is this important? It's a marketing tool. A CV is like a flyer for what you can do. So as a professional, when I ask for your CV as a recruiter, I just want to, in summary, what can you do? What are your achievements? Who are you? What's your number? Where have you studied? Where have you worked? What are the key skills that you bring on board? What are you looking forward to? So that's the CV that we talk about. The other thing is the questions. So as much as you might come knowing that you're going to be asked questions, don't go clueless, because this is what is going to make you so nervous that you get there, you even forget your name. You even forget what you're doing there, where you're from, and what you should say to them, because you've never been put on the spot to answer questions. Normally, you converse with people. So just treat it the same way as an interview. It's going to be, hi, what's your name? What are you interviewing for? It's not weird that they will ask you such questions. They need to know if they have the right person. You also need to show them they have the right person. So go ahead and research about the top 3 interview questions for whatever you're applying for. If you're applying for the role of a teacher, if you're applying for the role of a program coordinator, if you're applying for the role of of an accountant, a researcher, an analyst, you know, a programmer, whatever it is, just find out three questions they'll ask you. If it's a programmer and they ask you, what are the three programming languages you're familiar with? Answer that. If they ask you, can you tell us about yourself? Tell them the much that you can about yourself in the least amount of time. If they ask you, when can you start? Or if they ask you, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? They just want to know you. This is someone who does not know you, yet they're supposed to make a decision to hire you. So make it easy for them. So, just to summarize, when it comes to the preparation aspect, we have research about the company or the firm or the organization. Go ahead and reread the job description or job specification to compare yourself against what is being required and what you can do. The third thing is you want to ask your you want to go and research about your interviewers. If you're in a position to get that information, the fourth thing is to understand the format that they will use. Is it a video interview? Is it a one-on-one? Is there going to be a psychometric test? Is it going to test? What exactly are you preparing for? The fifth thing is your CV. Make sure you have your CV at hand. Make sure it's modern, it's updated, it's neat, and it markets you as a candidate, as a professional. And lastly, we have the questions. So, which questions are you prepared for? And also the questions that you will ask at the end. Because as much as they're asking you, they also expect you to have some questions. If you've done the research on all these things, you will have some questions for them. So also prepare three questions that you can ask at the end. And also for you, anticipate more than three questions that they will ask of you at the beginning, in the middle, and all through the interview. So that's what we talk about when you say preparation. Practice. Just as the old saying goes, practice makes perfect. This is not a lie. You want to understand that the more you practice, the more comfortable you are with answering, the more comfortable your answers sound to your ear or in your head, or when you say it out loud, you can correct yourself so that when you go to the interview, it's easy for you to talk. So, for example, some standard questions would look like, what is your biggest strength, or what are your strengths? It could also be, what are your weaknesses? Or it could be something like, maybe they're checking for a behavior or an instance that you demonstrated a quality they're looking for. So they can talk about a time where you took initiative. This means they're looking for someone with self-initiative. So they want to hear the examples you have of this particular skill, quality, or characteristic or trait. So it's important for you to remember you're there to market yourself. These people don't know you. You are there to tell them who you are and why you are the one to get that job, get that role, and not the rest. It's also a good idea to practice answers to some of the questions just so that you can make sure that you understand how to address it. Because you can start with, for example, talk about a time that you took initiative. When you're starting off the answer, you end up talking about how your boss didn't like you. You end up talking about how you were so frustrated by a particular project you are doing. Or you end up talking about positively, marketing yourself, but in the wrong department, talking about how you're a great leader, but they're asking you, what are your weaknesses? So make sure that for you to stay relevant, you are very much, you're also comfortable with hearing the answers in your head before you go to this interview. And I know it might sound weird, but how you do the practice, it could be you're looking at a mirror and you're talking to yourself. You're not talking to yourself in a way that it's not structured, but in a way that you imagine the person in the mirror is interviewing you. So you watch yourself. How are you talking? How is your body language? Do you look confident? Are you shifting your eyes? What are you doing that could make the interviewer think this person is a liar? This person is nervous. This person is not confident. All those things that you don't want to demonstrate in an interview. So you want to make sure that you either record yourself in a video, look at yourself in a mirror. You can also decide to record just the audio if you're comfortable with the mirror situation and everything. So guys, just a minute, just 1 minute.
Okay, great. Yeah, the session. Okay, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat box. Later on, they will be answered. Sometimes when you follow the session until the end, there are some questions that might come in between, and then you get lost. So at any point you have questions, just drop them in the chat box.
Okay. So, thank you for that, Bida. So, some of the questions that you might get in terms of standard interview questions would look like, why would you like to work for this company in particular? Again, this is something you can get online or a career coach can take you through just to personalize the experience and better prepare you. But basically, this is a chance for you to demonstrate your knowledge or basically the findings you got from your research about the company. So if I was researching EFSSS and I love that what the project they're working on, I will talk particularly about each and every project that I liked about. If I wanted to work for EDAS and I've gone to their website and I want to apply for this job. If they ask me why I want to work for that company, this is my chance to showcase how I've been following all their circulars, how I've been following all their posts, and so on. So, this is your chance to demonstrate that I've done my research and this is why I want to work for you. And I know there are a lot of jokes on the internet or even in our social circles, or when they ask you, why are you looking for this job? Why should we hire you? People say, because you need someone and I also want the job or because of money. That is all true. But at the end of the day, people do not just work for money. They work to the purpose. They work for what you're standing for. They want to work with people who are also passionate, people who are also knowledgeable, people who care about the work that they do. So this is why you need to come with that attitude for these people are also looking for money. They're also looking to do this project, but they're looking to get the best person to work with their team because they don't want you to come in there and everyone else wants to leave. Yeah. So describe a difficult work scenario and how you managed it. This is what we talked about, keeping your answers to be structured and focused. So how exactly, what are they testing out here? They're talking about you've obviously, if they say difficult, they expect that you are going to be having challenges in the work that you do, but they want to see how you manage it. They want to see your thought process. They can also go ahead and ask you, what are your career aspirations? What do you want to become? Whether you're mid, senior, entry, whatever level in your career you're on, they will ask you what you aspire to be. So you can also go ahead and even be honest if you don't know what you're going to be. You can just say, I've just started out this career. I'm looking to see where it will take me, but I really am passionate about developing 1, 2, 3 skills. I'm really passionate about project A or advancing the world to this area. It doesn't have to be a particular job title. Then the other question can be, what is your reason for leaving a previous job that you had, if you are a previous job holder? So the reason they ask is they want to know what are some of the things that made you walk away, which is a very normal thing to ask. So you can go ahead and describe what made you leave without tarnishing the organization's image. So a pro tip for reason for leaving is that you want to make sure, as much as maybe you left in bad terms or good terms, you give a reason that makes sense. Don't say, for example, it was too far for me. You can talk about, yes, you can say it that way, but you can just say the logistics of going to that particular job area and the fact that I was not getting a salary that would support it became a bit of a burden for me and I was not able to continue. If it's not anything to do with the salary or the logistics, you can talk about I was looking for opportunities in this area or in this career or in this department, and I was not seeing a chance of getting that there. So I focused my effort on looking for something that resonates with my values and my aspirations. You need to make it very clear that there's a thought process to how you come to arrive at decisions. That is very important. They're always looking at your decision making and your problem solving. So we've talked about a lot of the questions that you're going to be asked, but one of the pro tips that we mentioned at the beginning is that we're going to give you some pro tips in how you're going to succeed in this interview. So the first pro tip is you need to find a way to structure your answers. And one of the techniques that we have is STAR technique. So what does STAR mean? It's an abbreviation or an acronym. STAR basically stands for situation. So when you're answering an interview question, you want to describe a situation, set a scene that describes the situation you are in. For example, one of the questions was describe a time that you faced difficulty of work. Describe a difficult work scenario. So you have to set the scene of this difficult work scenario. How do you set the scene? You explain, give context. We are working on this project, for example, it is outside of South Sudan. It was in Rwanda, for example. And in Rwanda, this was somewhere that is new. We do not understand the language, but we were tasked with working with the locals, something like that. So someone can imagine, you actually had to leave somewhere that you're familiar with to go to somewhere where there's a language barrier. Okay, that's a situation. The other thing is T. So T is task. What task were you involved in the situation? For example, in a project where you're supposed to, for example, maybe build a building or a complex or whatever, you might find my role would be to look for the people that will work. Your role when I'm hiring you would be the person who's going to manage the project. So we have different tasks. What was the task in that situation? Were you the interpreter? Were you the designer? Were you the project manager? Were you the person on the ground? What was your particular task or duty in this situation? And then, or if you can even say, overall, you were tasked with building this complex. My role was this. Talk about your role. Don't say, we wanted to build, and I can't hear what you're doing. Because now I'll assume you're always doing things in a group and never as an individual, which is very dangerous. The other thing is action. So, what steps did you take to address the situation? So, you've talked about you have been tasked with building a complex in Rwanda. And as part of that team, your role was recruiting people. For example, I'm talking about myself. The action that I took is I wanted to hire local people so that I would make sure, aside from my team from South Sudan, I also had a few locals to help us blend in, advise us, and translate or interpret where necessary. So that's the action, that's the steps that I took. I actively set out to hire people that I would mix with also the home company or the head office company. What was the result? So the result you can talk about what exactly happened. What you can also go ahead and describe even more about the process. It was very difficult because maybe they wanted more money than what our budget was, if that's a scenario for you. You can even talk about the language barrier from the onset was maybe there. You can talk about the legislations, talk about whatever challenge you experience and how you are able to solve it. At the end of the day, if you manage to accomplish something, there is a result, even if it is not positive. So you can talk about if it was not positive, or even if it is positive, I learned ABCD, we were able to accomplish this. And next time, this is something I will do differently. This really helps in helping people see that you've structured your answer, you're someone who can communicate, and you also get to market yourself and your capabilities. Because you can imagine if you're going to be facing the same type of work that you've done before, they really want to see if you are capable candidate, if they should shortlist you for the next stage. So that's basically it. So what you're going to do is to just Bida, maybe you can advise if we're able to break into exercises so that we can try and see one of the questions for them to answer. For example, what are your career aspirations?
Do you want
Do you
to?
want to? Do you want to?
Sorry, sorry. Do you want to put them into breakout groups?
Yes, if it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible to do that. Now I see there are like 20, 23 or 24 people. So let's say five people. How many groups do you want?
Let's make it 8 people per group.
Eight people per group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
As Bida is doing that, I've seen the results of the poll is that how many of you have attended interviews? We see a third of us have attended, two-thirds of us have never attended an interview. So this is a chance for you to really understand what is expected from an interview, how to prepare for it, and how to make sure you've succeeded. Whether you've attended and failed, or whether you've attended and not failed, or even for the ones who've never attended, how to make sure that you succeed, how to prepare. So thank you for answering the poll.
Now I'm not sure. I'm not sure this is there. I can see it.
Uh, the breakout rooms.
Yes.
Okay, so what we can do is maybe we can get a volunteer. Do we have a volunteer? Anyone who wants to volunteer to answer this? Remember, you're learning. So I've seen there's a lot of questions. We'll have a session for that. Please, what we want to do is just let's have one volunteer. Let's have one.
I got it. I got the breakout room.
Oh,
So you
perfect.
said we can have three?
Yes, let's have three. Out of the three, one person just coordinate everyone. The question is, what are your career?
Okay.
So,
So
Paula,
Paula, I suggest that let's go with the second option you come up with. Looks like this breakout thing might get messy.
Or we just do the.
Yes, you go with the second option you had come up with. That one was to use a volunteer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go with that one. Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, we have a 15 minutes exercise. And the first question is for you to reflect on your career aspirations, because that is actually the first thing in job search. You need to be very clear about your career aspirations and what you actually want. Because when you know what you want, you can then easily go for it. So, Paula, how do we go about this exercise, please? Maybe you can guide them.
So we're using the STAR technique. We just want one volunteer to be able to attempt to use the STAR technique to answer this question. What are your career aspirations?
Yeah. So if you want to answer, you can you need to reflect on the question. You have like 10 minutes to think about this question, and then use the star approach. Put a situation, and then you have a task, and then you have an action.
Anyone who wants to attempt? I could pick at
Yes.
random.
Yes, I see there's someone there. Yes, Robinson, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think 10 minutes is like too much. I can answer that question. In 5 years, I'm looking myself as a president of my country so that organization like this one can thrive. I hope I'm heard.
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
yes,
you.
we can hear you.
Yeah. So organization like this one can thrive, and the livelihood of our community can also improve. I think I answered that question.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. How about you try using the STAR technique, because we are learning how to use the STAR technique. That's a lovely aspiration. I want us to use the same person. Please use the STAR technique, just like I've presented on the screen. If we can have the same participants.
I'm
Robinson.
trying to kanya. I'm trying to kanya.
Okay.
Yeah, just share the screen again so that they can see the star technique.
In this case, the situation is say you describe the situation you are in. So it doesn't have to be why, it can be the one that you're in or why, whichever.
Okay, by like describing the situation I'm in, it's like
Yeah.
I can say I have a big dream transited from a rapper into a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Like after this, I'm trying to run the government, but without your help, without the help of an organization like what's the name of the organization again?
EFS, excellence.
Yeah,
Mm.
EFS. With the help of such organization, I believe I can be able to achieve the goal that I set.
Okay, thank you for that, Robinson. Can we have a second volunteer? Thank you for that. We'll do two. Then lastly, after the two, I'll be able to give an example of how you can go about it. That's a really good example. Thank you so much, Robinson.
I went offline. I wish you could re-ask the question so that I can jump on also.
Okay, so for you, maybe we were looking at what are your career aspirations?
Okay. And then where are we? We looked at the situation or the task.
No, you
No, now
answer.
for this case, it's already been
So
answered. We're looking for a second volunteer.
To handle which question? The S or
What
the
are your
T?
career aspirations?
Maybe other person can come in and then I will follow.
Okay. Any other volunteer?
Yes, there's a hand. There's a hand from fellow Jitster. The name is not there. So kindly, the one whose hand is up, please proceed to attempt. Thank you.
Thank you for the time. Me, my career aspiration is strategic leadership in human resource management. And I would like to move into a senior leadership roles like human resource manager. And the situation is like an organization, maybe you are faced like for example, we are facing some challenges of performance, performance, and the task here is to look for a competent person to do the work. Action will be like recruiting a right person to perform the work, and the results will be like the output of the person. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had three volunteers, Robinson and a gentleman and a lady. Sorry guys, I can't see who was speaking because I'm currently sharing my screen. Thank you so
There's
much for
James
any.
Malice. There's another hand up from James Malice.
Okay, let's finish with that one hand. James,
Yes, good evening, everybody.
good evening. Go ahead and answer the question. We're looking at the question, what are your career aspirations? And we want you to use STAR technique in answering the question. You can go ahead and attempt.
Looks like the person dropped. Maybe you
Okay.
can just proceed.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and share what this would look like. When I talk about using the STAR technique, and you can go ahead and research about this. I hope you're all taking notes so that this is not just a conversation we're having and then you don't go ahead and research. Take notes, go ahead and do your own research. Using STAR technique in answering interview questions gives you a structure that allows you to take your interviewers through more like a story. There's a flow to it so they're able to understand where you're coming from, where you are, where you are coming from, where you are, and where you're going, and what the kind of person you are just based on the answers that you're giving. So, for example, if I was to answer this, we've had amazing answers by the volunteers. Again, thank you very much for that. So, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to set a scene or a situation that you are in. For example, if I was asked, what are my career aspirations? I would talk about currently I'm a HR, for example, I'm a HR manager, and I would basically you set the scene. I'm a HR manager with, for example, 6 years of work experience. I've worked through ABCD industries that have really exposed me to a lot. Normally, the tasks that I deal with throughout my past or throughout my career to this particular stage has been exposed in recruitment, payroll, compensation management, etc., etc. And how I've grown through this is I've been able to volunteer, I've been able to always put my hand up, and I've been recognized for my effort through my managers and also through the different organizations I've worked. And I've really learned a lot about the HR space. However, for where I am going, I foresee that I will need more support and I want to become. So, you talk about, for example, I'd like to become the group head of I want to explore the UAE markets. And to do this, I want to join your organization. You have to connect how whatever you're doing will apply in the future. How is this a bridge to you getting there? If I get this job, it will allow me to interact with the markets, it will allow me to interact with the roles that will prepare me to be this group head. So, what I've learned through this experience in my career and also what I anticipate to get from this particular job, you talk about what skills are you looking to learn from it? You know, also what skills have you learned in the past? So, the STAR technique is not just for answering situation-based, behavioral-based, or even technical-based questions. It can also be you have to find a way to use it as a structure. What's the situation? The situation is that I'm currently at this position. In this position, this is what I've been able to interact with now and in the past. The task is I want to get to a position where I'm managing more people, more a managerial position. This then means that I have to get this job that I'm interviewing for, or a job like this that allows me to deal with a larger company size or the markets that I want, or the activities or the areas that I want to learn in, or maybe hone my skills. Maybe I've been dealing with 100 employees, I want to deal with 1,000 employees. And so the action is that I am here in this interview, and when I come to this particular area, I look forward to progressing in your organization. The result is I will later on become the group HR. I will later on become the chief HR officer, whatever it is that I'm looking to get. So use the STAR technique and don't think of it as a way that it only answers situations. It can also answer career aspiration question. So it can answer any. It's a structured approach. You want to go ahead and look ahead into it. Thank you for your participation. So we're going to go to the fourth P. If you remember, we had four P's. We had five: preparation, practice. Right now we are at punctuality. And then the last two will be presentation and performance. So with punctuality, this is really just like it says, a no-brainer. When it comes to presentation, the first impression you make on people is always going to be on time. If you delay and you don't communicate, or even if you do, just avoid. Get to the interview 15 minutes earlier, not 1 hour earlier, not 2 hours earlier. And don't go there late or exactly on time. 15 minutes is the recommended time. If the interview is at 8, get there at 7:15, 7:40. If the interview is at 9, get there at 8:45, 8:40. If the interview is at 12, get there at 11:40 or 11:45 latest. 15 minutes to just make sure that if there's any delays, if there's any issues, you can be able to mitigate it. How do you do this? You look at the distance. If you know the place is going to take 1 hour, you factor that in. If you know this is a new area you've never gone to before, factor in 30 minutes so that you understand where you're going. And also, if you get there really earlier on time than anticipated, don't go into the office at that 2 hours or 1 hour earlier. Just go around, it's like doing a pre visit. And then when it's about 20 minutes to go to the office. Punctuality is very important. So just make sure that you always check the time, the date and the time, and you get there 15, maximum of 20 minutes earlier before the interview starts. If it is a virtual interview, make sure you're there 5 minutes earlier. Just let them see somebody is waiting. Because the minute you don't say somebody is waiting, they'll continue with whoever they were interviewing previously, and they'll even forget you're supposed to be there. So it's important that they see you're also on time. Presentation. Just like we've talked about, the first impression is really, really important. It's not just about punctuality, it's also about how you look like. We are visual creatures. How are you presenting yourself? What is your appearance? Do you look neat and clean? What is your body language? So did you come there dressing officially, if that is the dress code, unofficially, if that is the dress code? And I always talk about dress smart casual if you're not sure, but always aim for official. Official means tie, a suit, official shoes, anything that is unofficial dressing, like the way a bank would dress. That's what you should go for. If they tell you not to dress up that way, if you look from the website and the social media, they don't dress that way, go for smart casual because it's still an interview. So make sure you dress appropriately, even if it is a Zoom or a Google Meet or a Teams interview. Make sure at least the top part of you is very presentable. And why I say the whole body is because you might find someone is knocking at your room the way someone was knocking at my room. If I get up and I'm not appropriately dressed, what will happen? So just dress appropriately. And because even if it's 1 hour, 2 hours and you can leave, it's okay. If it's a virtual, if it's a physical, just dress appropriately. Don't carry your clothes so that you can go and change there, unless you think you'll get dirty and you prefer dressing up. when you're a bit near the office. But just make sure you dress nicely. That's not an advice I would recommend, but my point is make sure you dress nicely, you're presentable. Aside from being presentable on the physical, we're also talking about your mannerism and your body language. Be polite, be friendly, make sure you greet everyone. Don't assume the person at the gate is not to be treated with respect, but the person at the office is to be treated with respect. Treat everyone with respect and make sure you're polite and friendly as you can be. Don't start telling them things you're not supposed to. Just give them a polite smile, give them a firm handshake, not like you're afraid to shake their hands or that you don't want to, just a firm handshake. And if you can't handshake someone, just greet them, hello, good morning. That is enough. So the performance basically when it comes to the interview, we're looking at you, the body language that we talked about is to sit comfortably. Don't cross your legs, don't lean too much into the chair, don't be too, don't laugh too loud, try to make friends, because you think that's the way that you're supposed to win over friends. No, don't do that. Also, don't fidget. Don't start gossiping people at the lounge, waiting lounge with the interviewees that you're there with. Mind your business. Just sit, wait for your time, and all will be well. You can also try to make sure that you keep your voice even, not too loud, not too low, and also not too boring because you're there to engage people in a conversation. So as much as interviews are very nerve-wracking, meaning you can be very nervous and you feel like you just want to answer your question and keep quiet, try as much as possible to engage them in a conversation. If you don't understand or you did not hear a question, you can ask, please repeat that last part, I did not hear you. Or you can ask, just to clarify, I would like to clarify, are you asking this particular part about the work that I did? Make it a conversation. Make sure that if you don't understand something, you ask of it nicely. If you understand something, you can even start by thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. Or you can even start when you're starting your conversation. Thank you for inviting me for this interview. My name is, I want to appreciate you all for making time for calling me for this interview. I understand it's an intensive process, and I'm just grateful that I'm here and I'm honored or humbled. So I want to go ahead and give you a brief about myself. I want to go ahead and answer the first question issued by try and get everyone's name. If everyone shared their names, try and remember. Don't start saying the one with the blue cap. Don't start saying the one at the end, what you are saying. Try and remember their name. And if you don't, it's okay. You can just say, please forgive me, remind me your name. And you try and remember. So it's a conversation. Make sure you remember that. And how you perform will determine whether or not you're going to be called for the interview. Sorry, secure an offer. So let's go ahead and watch this particular. You can all see?
Yes,
How
I
to
can see.
during an interview. Key points. Important first impressions. Body language tips for both in-person and video call interviews. Decoding what the interviewer's body language is saying about your interview.
If you're getting ready for a job interview, your answers to the interviewer's questions aren't the only part of the interview you should practice. Your handshake, posture, and eye contact are just as important, and arguably more important, during the job interview. Of course, nonverbal communication is vital in any conversation. Nonverbal communication typically includes tone of voice, appearance, and body language, but we'll focus on the body language portion of nonverbal communication in this video.
While many job searchers are completing job interviews from home, it's still important to keep these tips in mind. This video will read through tips for what body language you should have during the interview and what body language to look out for from your interviewer. Please keep in mind that overall it's important to be yourself, and these tips are there to help you bring the best version of yourself to the interview. What body language you should have during the interview. If the interview is in person, there is one differentiating factor than if over video conferencing. First and foremost, the interview in person should kick off with a firm handshake. Then, the rest of the tips fall under both in person or over video calls. When interviewing, it's essential to match the interviewer's attitude. For instance, if the interviewer seems relatively casual, it's acceptable not to be as formal. Maintaining eye contact shows confidence in your interest in the position. If you're diverting your eyes, it can come across that you'd rather be elsewhere. Sitting up straight shows that you are confident in the topic of conversation. You should avoid slumping at all costs. However, leaning into the conversation is encouraged to show your interest. One should never force a smile, but a genuine smile shows you are engaged in the conversation. Make sure there aren't any distractions before the interview. To avoid checking your phone, turn your phone on silent. Sometimes we fidget out of habit or out of anxiousness, but you should avoid fidgeting during an interview as it will come across that you are uncomfortable. When the interviewer speaks, give non-verbal responses to show you are listening and interested in the topic.
What body language to look out for in the interview? Now that we've established what you can do to better during your interview through body language, we can talk through a few tips on figuring out whether your interview is going well by looking at your interviewer's body language. If your interviewer's eyes are diverting or seem preoccupied, then make sure you're not long-winded in response. If the interviewer's smile also shows crinkles at the corners of their eyes, the smile is genuine and not forced. A tilted head can display interest in the conversation at hand. If the interviewer is shifting weight or fidgeting, this usually means the interviewer is anxious or bored. While these tips show you what to do and what to look out for, it's important not to overthink all body language. Some micro expressions happen naturally to others and should be overlooked.
So that's on body language. I'm sure we've all learned a lot on what to expect. For example, the handshake, the eye contact. Make sure that when you're shaking somebody's hand, it's firm. Make sure you're not too sweaty. That would make the other person uncomfortable. Make sure that also how you're sitting. You're sitting in a straight posture or you're leaning forward slightly to show that you're interested. Also, make sure that in the way that your hands are moving, it's not too much, it's also not too still. Make sure that you're maintaining eye contact as it has been mentioned, and just give a relaxed but not over relaxed feel. And again, as I've talked about, one of the things that you can do is make sure that you have done your research in the preparation. What are some of the body languages interviewers look out for? What should I look out for as an interviewee in terms of body language? You know, do I shake my head? How do I shake my head? How do I shake the hand? How do I sit? You know, and things like that. So, what are some of the job etiquettes or etiquettes that I should consider in an interview? You can search for that. So, right now we have the second exercise. And in the second exercise, basically, I want just someone to give us a summary of what they've learned in the interview in this particular webinar. So if we can have someone to just give us a summary before we can finalize on the last slide, and then have the questions and answers. So up to this point, anyone to just go ahead and tell us what they've learned thus far if they were taking notes.
I think I'm ready to offer. I volunteer.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Ojara Charles. From the training we had shortly, or the one which is still continuing, we learned on the type of interview. We had one-on-one, mule, technical, and open interview. Here, that's why we need always to be prepared, especially when you throw in application, or sometimes you also, when you are not, maybe you are doing some networking and then colleagues say you can join us for a meal. You need to get prepared, especially for the meal interview. Dressing code, how we communicate should be actually part of our life. This one example I learned from one of our colleagues is he is American South Sudanese. He came to South Sudan, so he was invited for the meal. And then they disagree on the term of payment. So the gentleman said, "Have a dinner with us," and then actually they disagree that this is what I've learned. And then looking at the 5 pieces of interview preparation, this one, yes, we need to check on information about the company or the project or the product they are offering. That one will give us a concrete information about the institution. On job specification, always when job is advertised, we need to prepare ourselves enough to read through the job description or the job JID so that you know what you're applying for. If not, it means you're wasting time. Looking at the CV preparation, always we need to update our CV according to the job being advertised. That should be a routine or looking at the practices or yes, the practices, reason for leaving your previous job. This actually one of the difficult question, especially for us, the South Sudanese. Uh, we should not talk negatively about your current job or the previous job. We should have other some obstacles. You mentioned about the logistic, maybe the salary you are receiving cannot cover for your transport when you calculate it very well. And also you can create other social problems which made you maybe to leave the job. Uh, Coming to the star technique, which fall under the practice, and then punctuation, yes, being too early 1 hour before, it means you are like you don't have what to do. You are looking in for opportunity. Though, yes, that is what we need. At least 15 minutes, 20 minutes can make sense. Yeah. Body languages, we need to use them, but should be moderate, not too much like the crossing of the leg, sitting upright, I think is the best one. And then we look at our tonation. Uh, that one should also be. And then coming to the greeting, we need to be very specific, especially we South Sudanese. Don't say, "How are you?" I think the appropriate one should be, "Good morning, good morning." I think that's what I can add. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, thank you. It's interesting to hear what everyone has gotten. Thank you so much. That's very comprehensive. And just like he has said, it's important for you to take note of everything that we are discussing and use what will apply to you. For example, moderation in body language, how to prepare. We've talked about the punctuality, we've talked about looking at the job description, we've talked about researching and so on and so forth. So thank you for that. Do we have a second volunteer? Does anyone to share, even if we haven't gotten to the questions bit yet? I just want to see how far we're getting in terms of understanding how to prepare yourself for success in an interview. One more volunteer?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Ladies, please, where are the ladies? You're not learning anything? Please share your thoughts. We have Joanne, Annette, Konga, we have Susan Pony, we have Bakita, TA, we have Aluel Carol. What have you learned so far? If not, then we can give the chance to another gentleman.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello?
please, you're welcome.
Yes, this is Fema Matha.
Please go
Can you hear
ahead.
me? Yes,
Yes.
I think the previous speakers already summarized everything, but I just had some few here about start techniques in answering questions in the interview. You said we have to remember the interviewers' names. Yes, that is also important. Don't just say Mr. So and so or the one who was putting on the blue shirt. So we need to master all the interviewers' name. And also, at the start of an interview, we have to say, thank you for inviting me for this interview. And before you can start answering the question they have asked you for. That's what I have got, and the previous speakers already said everything. Thank you.
Nice,
Thank you
Martha.
for that. However, I'd prefer if someone just summarized what they learned because we are still, someone else will understand it better, but just as much as the other person has already said.
Yes, he has already broke it down.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm.
Okay, one more person, then we can go to the next session, which is now some of the questions and then the question and answers from your end. So one more person who maybe you feel like whatever has been captured, maybe let me ask, no, yeah, any person who feels whatever has been said by the speakers so far, one point that maybe they've forgotten that you'd like to emphasize. Well, the more you volunteer, the easier it is for you to remember.
There's a hand from Robinson.
Yes, Robinson, please go ahead.
Yes, from mastering jobs interview in general, what we learn like specifically for me, it's like the whole thing we've been talking about is like how to conduct ourselves when we are called for a job interview. So basically, what we learn is how to conduct ourselves when we are called for an interview.
Okay,
That's it.
that's it. Okay, so yes, that is still, as I've mentioned, everyone speaking brings a different perspective to all of the participants. We are learning how to conduct yourself in an interview, which is some of the things that would look like they're common sense, but they're really some of the pointers that you will use all through your career, and they're very important. And it's important for us to share. Just break it down so that it's not too complex for any one of us. Thank you for all the participants and volunteers. So we talked about as much as you're being asked questions, there's also a chance for you to ask as well. So you can ask in between if you haven't understood, if you need more clarification, or you can also ask towards the end because they might give you a chance and ask you, do you have any questions for us? So how exactly would you go about that? And that's why we have this session. Some of the questions that recruiters like myself look forward to hearing from candidates just to show that they're interested, so also they can also hear our voices, hear our perspectives, hear who they want to work with. Is, for example, what does a typical day in this particular role? You can even say in working as a HR, in working as an accountant, in working as a program coordinator, in working as an architect, look like, in case you feel like yes, the duties are outlined, but I still need to know, like, do you have morning meetings, do you have departmental meetings, what exactly does a day look like so that I can prepare myself mentally. And then you can also go ahead and ask who will the role be reporting to and who else is in the team if it has not been highlighted in the job description. So you can ask, so who would I report to? Would I report to the head of? Do I report to the owner, the MD, the director? Who am I reporting to? Who is going to be in the team that I'll be in? You can also ask about their expectations within the first 30 days or 90 days or even on 80 days. You can ask, what do you expect from me within this first few days so that you understand what success or what are the metrics of success in this organization. Why this is important, it's also to pace yourself. So if you're expecting to come the first 30 days, you're just hanging around, saying hi to everyone, drinking coffee, not doing much, and maybe they're expecting you to do quite a lot, this would also disabuse you of that notion and prepare you mentally for the work that is ahead. And the other thing is, you can also ask, can you tell me about the working culture in this organization? So if that has not been highlighted, if you did not get it on the social media, you can even ask them in your own words, how would you describe the working culture in this company, in this organization, and hear what they have to say. It also helps them to understand it. The other thing is, what processes exist to support employees in their career development. So this is just to understand, if I come here and I want to advance my career, will you allow me study leave? If I come here, do you support paying for school? Are there loans that I can take from the organization and pay back? What facilities do you have to support this in terms of time, resources, or anything basically? Then also you can talk about, tell me more about the firm's training program. If they have one, what's the training program? Do you facilitate this for the kind of profession that I am in, and so on and so forth. So now we can have the questions and the answers, questions and the answers, questions and the answers.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, first, thank you so much, Paula, for the in-depth session and having to clearly explain most of the concepts when it comes to job interviews for the different participants who've joined us today. And the floor is open for questions. If you are in a noisy place, just type your question in the chat box. But if you're in a place that can allow you to speak, please feel free to raise your hand, and then later on, when you are asked, you can unmute and then ask your question. We have some questions in the chat box. The first question was asked by James Malis, and he was saying, where do you start when you are asked the question to talk about yourself? Where there's an interviewee have to start when he or she is asked, tell us about yourself. And then another one was saying that there are some questions they always ask, like, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? How do you approach that question? And then another question that just came in is saying, based on your experience as a human resource man, as a recruiter, that is Lexis. Lexis View is saying, based on experience as a recruiter, how does nervousness influence interview outcome? Is there a level of nervousness that is acceptable in an interview? That is from Lexis View. And then Konga Noella is asking, how can you approach the question, describe a time that you disagreed with a supervisor? So these are some of the questions we have in the chat box. And for the participants, if you have your question, you can raise your hand and then ask those ones who want to ask without having.
Bida, thank you for that, Bida. I'll require your help. Let's just start with the first question.
Okay, the first one is saying, that is from James Malis. He's asking, where do you start when you are asked to talk about yourself?
Where do you start when you're asked to talk about yourself? Thank you, James, for that question. One of the pro tips that I've shared with you is using the STAR technique. But when it comes to talking about yourself, the format that I usually recommend is, just think of this person as having someone who has not known you before. So you can use your CV as a guide, like say, my name is, obviously we talked about saying, thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm here to interview for this particular position. And you talk about your experience. So you give them a summary of who you are, which is why I talked about using your CV as a guide. A summary of who is this person who's seated in front of them. I am an ambitious ABCD with dash years of experience, work experience. And I am looking to work in X type of an organization or work setup. Then go ahead and walk them through your academic journey, your work journey, or your career, your work experience journey, and then talk about at the end of it all the skills that you've accumulated. So you can decide to just start with the summary of who you are, or you can decide to start with the academic, then talk about the work experience, or talk about the skills you've accumulated, and finish it up with a summary of who you are as a career summary. So my pro tip for that is when you look at your CV, that is what will guide you. First, start by thanking them for the opportunity, if it's the first question that has been asked, and then also clearly state the role that you're applying for. And then you can go ahead and give them an overview. For example, James is a dedicated, you can just say, I am a dedicated, for example, maybe you are, maybe a software programmer, I'm a dedicated software programmer with an expertise in C++, Python, Django, and basically just talk about the programming languages that you have expertise in. And I have 10 years of experience in the software engineering space. And then talk about now I started my education at this stage, talk about the work experience, talk about, so I've been able to accumulate the skills or the competencies of, talk about them, team management, project management, UI, UX, so on and so forth. And then lastly, you can finish it up by what you aim to bring forth to the organization. Even as you're continuing saying, just say like, with all of this, I'm looking forward to contribute to the success of this company. So that's one way to do it, and just limit yourself to a maximum of 5 minutes. In between, they might interrupt you. They can say, oh, that's interesting, you know, and they can ask you questions in between. Feel free to be taken away from your scripts and answer the questions that they will ask. But if they don't interrupt you, just continue so that they can listen to how you would say or how you would describe yourself to them. The second question?
Okay. The second question is Robinson is saying there are some questions they always ask, like, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? How do you approach it? Thank you.
Thank you for that. So where do you see yourself in 5 years, and what are your career aspirations? Are more or less the same. And we talked about using the STAR technique. What you want to do is, if you do not have a map in your head of how you're going to get to the place or the destination of your success, you can just say that you can map out, like, I understand, for example, if it's being an accountant, I understand I need to finish my CPAs. I'm currently on my third CPA. Obviously, still using the STAR technique. You talk about the scene. Right now, I am this and this and this, and I have this years of work experience. I foresee that I'll have to finish the CPA, which is the task, and then talk about the action you'll take. So I anticipate when my salary maybe allows me, as I'm saving up, to do this, or save, applying to this organization so that I can have more time, or whatever the situation you're looking to get, so that I can have more time to finish my CPAs. And then lastly, so the result would be that I'll be a CPAK, I'll be a certified public accountant, and I will have by that time probably around 7 or 10 years of work experience, and I can get to position X. And while I'm doing this, if you wanted to be a financial advisor, talk about the steps that will get you there. If you don't know it, you can just openly say, I am aware there's some things that I need to do to get to where I want to be. So maybe I'm looking for mentors, or I'm open to mentors even in this organization to help me to achieve this goal. Use the STAR technique to answer this question, but just show them that you have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, talk about your purpose. So it could be that you actually are not tied to a particular career, but you have a particular goal in mind that you want to make sure. I believe it's Robinson who said, I want to make sure this country is going to be able to accommodate organizations, or have a conducive environment for foundations that are going to help with youth empowerment, help with ABCD. So what is your goal? You can talk about that, and you can even be open that I don't know how I'm going to do this, so I'm open to mentorship, but right now this is what I'm doing. Don't look like you don't have a plan. You can say, this is what I'm currently doing. I'm interacting with the founders, I'm interacting with this, I'm doing some things to help me in terms of getting to that goal. And use the STAR technique. That's a pro tip.
Great. Thank you. Can we go to the third one? The third one is from Lexis Will. Lexis Will is saying, based on your experience, I think he's
Mhm.
referring to you. How
Mhm.
does nervousness influence interview outcome? Is there a level of nervousness that is acceptable in an interview?
Yes. So, I mean, when you're nervous, you also make the interviewers uncomfortable, even if they don't want to be nervous. With recruiters, I'm just wondering what would make you nervous. I mean, I know I've been there for a long time and done all of this, but what would make you so nervous that you can't answer a simple question? So obviously, with that in mind, what you want to do as a candidate is just try and control your breathing. Try and as much as possible to make sure you're doing breathing exercises before you get into the room. Try not to have sweaty palms. If you do, carry like a white handkerchief just to dampen your hands a bit. You can just say, guys, naturally I have sweaty palms. Please excuse me if I reach out for my handkerchief. But just to hide that maybe you're nervous for now. You can also sip water. You can try as much as possible with the body languages. Some of the things with the body languages, like just sitting up straight, breathing, maintaining eye contact, will help you with your nervousness. Whatever would be an agreed, there's no level of agreed. I mean, they will try as much as possible to accommodate it because it's an interview. But because we are aiming for success, just do your best not to be too nervous that you're stuttering, you can't talk, you're sweating, and all those things. Breathing exercises usually help. And try as much as possible and concentrate on the questions you're being asked and answering the question. That's all you need to focus on with your body language because that is what you're there for. You're there to get a job. These are going to be your future colleagues if you're successful. You cannot fear your future colleagues. How will you work with them? You know. Okay. Last question.
It's not the last.
Sorry, I thought there are four. Continue.
Okay, the other one is from Konga Noela. She's asking, how do you approach the question? Describe a time that you disagreed with a supervisor.
So obviously that's to test out your conflict resolution. Everything, just like I started by saying, the questions are there to test out they're looking for someone who knows how to do something. If they're looking for initiative, they'll tell you what are the times you took initiative. They're looking for leadership, they'll ask you about leadership. If they're looking for communication, they'll ask for communication. So when you're doing the preparation, look at how do you manage disagreeing with a boss? How do you manage disagreeing with a colleague? How do you manage disagreeing with a client? How do you manage conflict resolution basically? So look at the key skills that you need to succeed in this job. They'll even put it in the job description. We need somebody who has, is a collaborator or someone who's team spirited. We need someone who's a good communicator. We need someone who has ABCD. They'll put all the qualities, the abstract qualities or the soft skills that you need. Go and Google the questions on those particular qualities. Practice it in your head and practice it out loud. This will allow you to actually confidently say your answer. Okay, so yeah, I did manage to resolve this conflict, and this is how I did it. And that is from the research, from the practice. Practice it, research it, and say it out loud until you're confident with it. And be very keen when they're asking a question. There's a particular quality or skill they're looking for. That is what you should be answering. They're not trying to attack you as a person. They just want to see, can they work with you? Can you work with the team? And so on.
Okay. So the next question is saying, what could be, this is from Bakita Athie. Bakita Athie is saying, what could be reasons why someone failed more than one interview?
So there are a lot of reasons that could lead you to fail in them. A practice that you can adopt is if you fail in an interview, whether they communicate it via call or email, if they leave it open that they can give you feedback, please ask for it so that you can also understand what were the concerns that they had. The other thing you can do is ask them before you end the interview, do you have any concerns about me from this interview or in my candidacy? That basically means what is making you unsure of me as a candidate. That helps you to refine. If they say it's your experience, there's nothing you can do about it. If they say it's, or if there is, maybe you didn't communicate your experience correctly, ask them which part about my experience. If they say it's too little, too much, not enough, try and understand what are the areas that they have concerns over and work on it. If it's something you cannot work on, maybe something that time will solve, and if it's not time, it's something else, just I don't want to say accept, but move on to, because there's always an organization that is willing to take you up. The ones that refuse and they have very high standards that you can't meet, it's okay. Just accept, you know. So that would be my feedback. Try and understand from the previous interviewers or from the previous interviews, what did you notice was wrong? Were you nervous the first time? Were you late the first time? Did you share the right CV? Did you apply for the right job? Did you ask them why they are, or did they tell you why they are concerned about having you on? What are some of the clues or cues that you can pick up from it, and how can you improve yourself for the next one? And also for the next interview that you're going on, don't be discouraged. Feel free to just confidently ask, do you have any concerns about me working on this job or about me as a candidate? Listen to them, work on it, address it now if you can, or in the next interview, if you're not successful, work on that particular area.
Great. Yeah, I'm really impressed by the way you're answering the questions. That is very helpful. And I see the next question here is from Bagia Charles. Bagia Charles is saying that, what are your salary expectations? Does this question affect someone's chance of getting the job?
So, with the salary expectation, if they did not share the budget, you can throw back the question by asking them what the salary budget was. If they give you a range, let's say they say, we're looking to pay $1,000 to $2,000. That's a wide range. That obviously depends on the experience level, on the and how strong you presented yourself. Just know that's a range. If you're okay with that range, if they give you 1,000, 1,100, 2,000, then obviously that's what they have. If they give you an exact figure, they say our budget is 1,500 or 2,500 or 10,000, that's exactly what they're willing to give. If you don't accept it, you can say, obviously I was expecting more. And if they can decide even not to talk about the budget, they can just say, no, we just want to hear your particular expectations. You can share your expectations, you're free to do it. And if you're not comfortable, you can just say something like, I'm comfortable with whatever offer you'll share with me. I'm sure we'll come to an agreement. You can just say something like that. And when they share the offer, if you don't like it, then you don't have to accept it. But if you feel it's important for them to know your expectation, that would be your time to air it. If you don't want to air it, you can say you're okay with whatever offer they'll give you, and you're sure you'll come to an agreement, meaning you're open to negotiating. The other thing is also asking them what is the budget, and if you're okay with the range or the figures they will quote, then all is well.
So he's saying that if you give them, if you like, for example, you answer them, you tell them your figure and stuff. Does
Yeah,
it, like, for you who's a recruiter, does it affect someone's chance of getting the job?
it does, because if your budget is higher, then and I know I can't increase it, then it's that would, and even if I give you the offer, you won't accept it. So it's also a good chance for you to just make sure that you get a good offer sometimes, or at least they understand what you're expecting. Would it affect? Yes, because if I give you, for example, 5,000 and you say the expectation is 10,000, you will not consider me. So if you feel like it will affect and you don't want to take that risk, you have to weigh. If you don't want to take that risk, just say, I'm looking forward to reviewing the offer you'll give me, and I'm sure we'll come to an agreement. That's enough.
Okay, great. Thank you. The last question I'm seeing here is from Peter Lualpium. Peter Lualpium is saying, what does a job advertisement mean by
Mhm.
putting a notice as update your CV?
Update your CV. Update your CV
He's saying,
basically means,
the question is, what does the advert mean by putting a notice that update your CV?
update your CV basically means that some people might apply with their old CV, So they're just putting there more like a caution. Don't come with the old CVs. Update up to your previous work experience, because you can find someone will apply with the same CV they've had 3 years ago. A lot has changed. You have to change. You have to update your CV almost every 6 months to 1 year, because things change. You get involved in projects. You even can change position. So you need to keep updating your CV. You need to keep updating your LinkedIn. You need to keep updating your professional sites. Yeah. These are
Great.
marketing tools to keep updating.
Great. Thank you so much. Those were the questions in the chat box. Now we will open the floor to other people in the call. In case there's a question that you wanted to ask and has not been asked through the questions we read in the chat box, feel free to unmute and then ask your question. If there are no questions in the chat box, that means most of the questions have been addressed. So, but if you're still there and you feel you have a question that needs to be answered, feel free to raise your hand and ask that question, or we will give it to the trainer to put her closing comments, and then we meet again tomorrow.
Yes, Vida, I'm online.
Yes, Ojara, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, concerning the salary expectation. I don't know this is in South Sudan where a company or an institution contract a private firm to recruit the workers. And you find a project manager will be in the recruitment team or during the interview. When you are asked what is your salary expectation, you may find the institution is having like 1,500, that is 1,500, and then the project manager has got his own people. Maybe he promised somebody that is going to pay him 1,000 USD. At the end of the day, when my salary expectation is 1,500, they will deny me from the position, even if I'm a successful candidate. This one I've witnessed it until the person was qualifying for the position. They tried to negotiate, and then at the end of the day, they offer him the job. I don't know if she can highlight more on that concerning the project manager have more influence on the position, because it's the right person who will be working with the what? With the successful candidate. And then she talks of anxiety and being scared during interview. How can we manage that? That's two. And thirdly, take the scenario other institution. This one I can give myself as an example. After the interview, they say you can go, and then I have to say, are you not giving me opportunity to ask a question? The panel was too big. There were more than 15 because they were representing the head of department and other management. So they say no. And then I insisted that, no, I cannot leave the room minus asking a question. If she can highlight more on that, can that one contribute to my failure, or it can contribute to my success? Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ojara, for the questions. Paula, I hope you picked the questions.
Thank you, Ojara, for that. I'll just start with the first question.
I've forgotten one question. And then sometime after applying, the recruitment team, they will say, they write you a notification that thank you very much, you have passed the first interview, but unfortunately, you have not passed the second interview. That one make a sense for me as somebody who is seeking for a job. Should they give me such notification? Thank you.
I hope I've been able to fully understand. So for the first one, if the project manager decides to give you less than what you had agreed, that's something that's internal with the operations. Just make sure that every time you accept a job, there's some paperwork, there's an email, there's a contract, there's an agreement, there's an offer letter that you can follow up with this person and just understand why. Were there any taxation? What are the reasons for whatever you had agreed not being met? That's you communicating with the manager. You can just go and see how to resolve that either with the HR office, the payroll office, or whoever is directly supposed to help you with issues of pay. The second one is issues with nervousness. As I've said, it's important that you focus on your body language. Sit up, look at them, maintain eye contact, breathe in, listen to the questions and address the question and not try to think about anything else that might make you nervous. Just answer the question using the STAR technique. And given that you've done all your preparations and practice and all that, and you arrived on time and you're presentable and you're doing everything right, you'll notice it gets easier. The third one, I don't think I got it correctly. Bida, did you get the third part of the question?
Yes. So he was saying that he was in an interview panel, and then there's that part at the end where they were supposed to give him an opportunity to ask questions, but they did not. So he asked them whether there was a chance for him to ask questions, but again they said no, he cannot ask questions, and he's asking whether that can affect the fact that he insisted that he wants to ask them questions, but they refused. Will that affect the outcome of the interview? That's what he's asking.
Oh, thank you, Bida. So, Ojara, one thing you need to understand is that sometimes, even with interview schedules, when they don't do what is an ideal or best practice, it can be they don't have time. It can be maybe the right people are not there to address the questions you might ask. Maybe it's technical. It could also be that they're, again, with time. It could also be a lot of factors. Would it affect? Obviously, if you politely asked and they refused, and you tried to say maybe you just have a few questions and they refused, it's okay. I don't think it will affect so long as it was politely asked. It depends also in the way that you asked. If you asked it politely, you're safe. If it came out a bit abrasive, maybe not. And the reason I say this is you have to remember the people interviewing you are most likely going to be working with you. So if this person does not feel comfortable working with you, they will not give you a yes in terms of a vote. So in an interview, go with the mentality that you're trying to win over the interview panel or the interviewer. Yeah, basically. Okay, I have another session exactly at 10. I'll just take one question and then I'll let Bida continue.
I think we are left with 10 minutes, actually 5 minutes to close. Just answer this one question.
No
Someone left it
problem.
in the chat box. The person is saying there are situations where recruiters say they only want experienced candidates who are qualified to apply, but there's that person who is interested but has no experience. Is the person allowed to apply or not? I think this is not related to job interviews, but he's talking about, I think, from application stage.
So, if they ask you, I always say apply. You could think you're not qualified or you have the right experience, but maybe you are. And it could also be everyone else has been too scared and they haven't applied. However, I will urge you to be very realistic in the jobs you're applying for. If they're looking for a CEO and you're an intern, forget it. But if you have some managerial experience and you see you can do the job, then apply. If you look at the job description and you feel this is something you can do, you have exposure in doing it, you are the right person, apply for that job. That's my advice.
Okay, great. We'll allow you say your final words and then go rest and prepare for your next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bida. Thank you so much, everyone else. And I hope to learn more from you guys and interact with you in the next cohorts. It's always a pleasure working with EFSS. And have a great rest of the afternoon. Bye.
Great. Have a lovely afternoon too. All the best in everything you do. And thank you all for joining. Tomorrow is the second day, the same time. We'll give you even more insights. Don't miss it. For those ones who might have joined late, we'll share the link to this recording as well as some tips that you might find very helpful. Take good care of yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, and let's meet again another time. Tomorrow. Let's meet again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Cheers.